Picture this. In November 2024, a legendary British luxury brand released a 30-second commercial that didn't show a single car. Instead, it featured models in bright outfits, paintbrushes, and sledgehammers surrounded by pink geometric sets. Within months, Jaguar's European car registrations fell from nearly 2,000 to just 49, a collapse of over 97%. The internet mocked it, the media tore it apart. The campaign meant to redefine, Jaguar ended up redefining brand failure. This is the story of how one 32-second ad turned a century-old icon into a modern cautionary tale. The ad that confused the market. On November 19, 2024, Jaguar pulled the curtain on what it called its boldest move in a century, a marketing reboot titled Copy Nothing. The campaign was supposed to introduce a new era of creativity, individuality, and modern luxury. But when the 30-second spot dropped, it looked nothing like a car commercial. Instead of the thunderous growl of a V8 or the elegant motion of a sleek sedan gliding down a winding road, audiences saw models in neon-bright suits and avant-garde dresses, standing in pink and blue geometric spaces. One held a paintbrush, another a sledgehammer. Not a single vehicle appeared on screen. The music was abstract, the visuals artistic, but the message? Impossible to decode. To longtime fans, it felt like the brand had abandoned its soul. To younger viewers, it didn't look like a car company at all. It could have been a fragrance ad, a fashion film, or even an art installation. Within hours, comments flooded social platforms. Where are the cars? And is this still Jaguar? For decades, Jaguar's identity was built on speed, refinement, and British class. Roaring engines, handcrafted interiors, and timeless design. This ad seemed to erase all of that. What was meant to announce reinvention instead created confusion. Viewers didn't see a vision of the future. They saw a brand forgetting what made it great. Heritage versus rebirth. A risky rebrand. Behind Jaguar's Copy Nothing campaign was a bigger strategy called Reimagine, a plan to turn Jaguar into an all-electric, ultra-luxury brand. The company aimed to compete with Bentley and Rolls-Royce, focusing on fewer cars but far higher margins. To prepare for that shift, Jaguar halted production of every existing model by the end of 2024. The F-Type, XE, XF, and even the I-Pace overnight. Dealerships that once sparkled with polished vehicles became quiet, waiting for a new lineup that wouldn't appear until 2026. Then came the visual overhaul. The iconic leaping cat emblem, which had symbolized motion and power for decades, was replaced with a plain, modern word mark. It was sleek, but soulless. Loyalists said the change stripped away the very identity that made Jaguar. Aspirational executives called it a bold step toward the future. But customers felt detached. The move that was meant to feel revolutionary instead looked like a brand running from its roots. In trying to appear visionary, Jaguar risked becoming invisible, a reminder that reinvention only works when it carries your legacy forward. Do you sell cars? 4 words that echoed globally. When Jaguar's Copy Nothing ad premiered, confusion quickly turned into mockery, but nothing hit harder than 4 words from Elon Musk. On the same day, the Tesla CEO posted on X, "Do you sell cars?" Those words spread like wildfire. Within hours, the comment was everywhere. Memes, news articles, reaction videos. It was short, sarcastic, and devastating. For millions of viewers, Musk's post captured exactly what everyone was thinking. The ad was stylish, but no one knew what it was actually selling. For Jaguar, it was a public relations nightmare. Months of creative work disappeared in a single viral moment. The brand that once symbolized British craftsmanship was now being mocked by its biggest rival. Musk didn't just criticize the ad, he reframed the entire conversation, turning a creative experiment into a global punchline. From car forums to late-night talk shows, one line kept repeating, "Do you sell cars?" It became more than a joke. It became the headline that defined Jaguar's marketing misfire. Once that happens, no amount of advertising can change the narrative. Backlash that tipped the scale. Once Elon Musk's comment went viral, the backlash turned unstoppable. What began as confusion over a commercial quickly became a public roasting across every major platform, comment sections filled with disbelief. Viewers said it felt like Jaguar had forgotten who it was. Some asked if the company had been hacked, others joked that it was advertising everything except cars. The criticism wasn't limited to internet humor. Business analysts and marketing experts called it one of the most tone-deaf rebrands of the decade. Polls showed overwhelming disapproval, with a majority of viewers describing the campaign as disconnected and strange. The phrase, "copy nothing," became ironic because the ad gave audiences nothing to connect with. Commentators compared Jaguar's marketing flop to Bud Light's crisis, labeling it another case of a company misreading its audience. Even longtime fans felt betrayed. After decades of admiring the brand's craftsmanship and design, they saw this campaign as an attempt to chase internet trends instead of preserving legacy. By the end of that week, Copy Nothing wasn't just a failed commercial. It had become a global example of how fast a brand can lose its identity. And unfortunately for Jaguar, the numbers that followed proved the damage was real. Sales collapse that spoke volumes. Just months after the campaign launched, Jaguar's European sales hit record lows. From nearly 2,000 vehicles in April 2024, registrations dropped to only 49 a year later, a stunning 97.5% collapse. Dealerships across Europe stood nearly empty, and customers who once dreamed of owning a Jaguar were now choosing other brands. Some dealers even reduced staff because there was simply nothing left to sell. The company explained the decline as part of its electric vehicle transition, saying production had been paused until the new models arrived in 2026. But critics weren't convinced. The timing of the collapse matched the marketing backlash too perfectly to ignore. Analysts pointed out that even before production stopped, sales were already sinking fast. It wasn't just a supply issue, it was a trust issue. Jaguar's longtime buyers no longer felt proud of the badge, and new customers didn't understand what the brand stood for anymore. The result was catastrophic. A century-old symbol of luxury performance had been reduced to a handful of sales and an uncertain future. The campaign that was meant to redefine Jaguar ended up redefining failure. And it was about to get even worse. The parent company thrived, but Jaguar didn't. While Jaguar's sales collapsed, its parent company, Jaguar Land Rover, JLR, was thriving. Land Rover models like the Range Rover, Defender, and Discovery were performing better than ever, pushing JLR's profits to multi-year highs. The contrast couldn't have been more embarrassing. Under the same corporate roof, one brand was booming while the other was collapsing. It proved that the problem wasn't the economy, the electric transition, or customer spending habits. It was Jaguar's branding itself. Land Rover continued selling tens of thousands of vehicles because it knew exactly who it was: rugged, reliable, and luxurious. Jaguar, on the other hand, seemed to be having an identity crisis. Dealerships that once displayed both brands began feeling the divide. The Land Rover sections were bustling with customers. The Jaguar sections sat quiet and half-lit. Some dealers even removed Jaguar displays altogether, waiting for its future electric lineup. The situation became so dire that Jaguar had to reduce its retail network dramatically. Cutting from over 100 dealerships to just a few curated stores meant to focus on experience rather than volume. But the truth was clear. While Land Rover was earning record profits, Jaguar was becoming a financial and reputational liability. And behind this imbalance was a bold but deeply flawed vision that executives believed would save it: the Reimagine Plan. Inside the Reimagine Plan, and where it failed. The Reimagine Plan was supposed to be Jaguar's comeback story, a blueprint for turning the company into a futuristic, electric-only brand by 2026. It promised fewer cars, higher prices, and total reinvention. Instead of chasing the mainstream luxury market, Jaguar wanted to play in the ultra-premium league. Every vehicle would cost over £100,000, built for exclusivity rather than scale. On paper, it made sense, but in execution, it became a disaster. To create that transformation, Jaguar ended production of all its current models before introducing any replacements. There were no new cars to bridge the gap, no prototypes for customers to see, and no reason for buyers to stay loyal. They called it a fire break, but it felt more like a blackout. Customers walked into showrooms to find nothing to test drive, nothing to order, and nothing to believe in. The company had effectively paused its own existence for nearly 2 years. The strategy relied entirely on anticipation, but anticipation only works when people are still paying attention, and by then, Jaguar's audience had already moved on. Even industry experts, who once praised the idea, began calling it too risky. They warned that luxury isn't built only on innovation. It's built on trust, emotion, and continuity. Jaguar had broken all three at once. The result? A reimagination that turned into disappearance, a bold vision that left behind an empty showroom, and a brand that had lost its voice. Leadership fallout, and what it signaled. By mid-2025, the storm inside Jaguar reached the boardroom. Longtime CEO Adrian Mardell, who had spent over 3 decades with the company, announced his retirement officially. It was framed as a smooth transition, but to the public, it looked like the fallout from one of the biggest brand disasters in modern automotive history. The timing couldn't be ignored. Profits for the parent company were soaring, but Jaguar itself was in free fall. Behind closed doors, leadership reportedly debated whether the Reimagine strategy had gone too far, too fast. The creative agency behind the Copy Nothing campaign was quietly dropped, and a global search began for a new partner to rebuild the brand's image. Mardell's exit symbolized more than just a change in management. It was the end of an era. The man who had helped stabilize the company financially couldn't save it from its identity crisis. His replacement, P.B. Balaji, became the first Indian CEO to take the reins of the historic British automaker, tasked with guiding Jaguar's electric rebirth. To outsiders, it looked like a reset button, but inside the industry, it was seen as a warning. No matter how big your name or how old your legacy, one wrong message can undo decades of trust. The lesson Jaguar taught the world. The Jaguar collapse wasn't just about one ad, it was about what happens when a company loses touch with the people who believed in it. The Copy Nothing campaign was meant to celebrate originality, but it ended up highlighting a dangerous truth. You can't reinvent identity by deleting history. Luxury isn't just about what you sell, it's about what you stand for. Customers buy emotion, not slogans, and Jaguar's mistake was trying to rewrite its story without inviting its audience along for the journey. In the process of chasing modern relevance, it abandoned the very soul that made it matter. The result? A 102-year-old icon reduced to a meme, a legendary carmaker forced to learn, painfully, that authenticity can't be replaced by aesthetics. So was Jaguar's rebrand a visionary move that simply arrived too early, or a billion-dollar identity crisis that history will never forget? Let us know your take in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more deep dives into billion-dollar brand disasters, because unlike Jaguar's marketing strategy, ours actually works.